everyone, I'm Dr. Benji, and today we're going to be talking about vitamin D supplementation. Right now with COVID-19, a lot of the media is focusing on treatment protocols or for patients who already have COVID-19. My job is to help teach you, and hopefully you can share it to everyone else so they understand the role that vitamin D has in preventing bacterial and viral infections. So a lot of patients of mine don't even take multivitamins. They're not really sure what vitamin D is good for. They know that orange juice and Sunny Delight have vitamin D, and something about skin and UV, but not really to the extent that I'm going to be able to share with you today. How do we get vitamin C? Through our nutrition and foods like tuna, mackerel, salmon, cheeses, orange juice. I think that was the majority of it. Cereals, that's another one. Also through sunlight. So sunlight hits our body and we are able to take the UV radiation, convert it to vitamin D. But we know that low vitamin D levels is associated with a higher risk of cancer. And the body's ability to fight infections is directly related to our body's immune response, and especially to our vitamin D levels. So there was a study out of the British Medical Journal in February of 2017 that found an association or linkage between vitamin D and acute respiratory tract infections, either from bacteria or from viruses such as COVID-19. Back then, they weren't talking about COVID-19, but they did find a direct linkage. And the type of study this was a meta-analysis. So meta-analysis, basically researchers took all sorts of research articles and they made a summary based on all the data they could find in all those research articles. The nice part about it was that it was a randomized double-blind controlled study. So that basically means that's like the creme de la creme. The power of the study was very strong. And so that means it's a very credible research article. The amount of people that were in these studies totaled 11,000 people, so it's quite a few number of people. And they found that the overall protective effect of vitamin D was statistically significant, meaning there was a 95% chance that the statistics they found was accurate and reliable. They split it into groups that were actually getting vitamin D and another group that was getting a bolus, something like a sugar pill. And they found that they were giving these patients either a bolus, meaning, a placebo, I think I said bolus, but they split it into patients getting vitamin D and a bolus, so not vitamin D. And then they had patients getting a bolus amount, meaning one large amount, weekly and daily. And the people that were getting a bolus amount, they had about a 12% protective effect. What is protective effect? That basically means 12% less chances of developing a bacterial viral infection. Those that were taking vitamin D weekly and daily had a 19% protective effect. So 90% chance that less of a chance that they will develop an infection. Now the biggest one was that patients who already had low vitamin D levels, so less than 25 nanomoles per liter, which is basically the number that you see when your doctor gives you your lab results. If it says 25 or less, that's you. You had a 70% effective protective effect. And so that is outstanding. I mean, that shows you that if you have low vitamin D levels, you should be on vitamin D supplementation. And I'll be honest, mine was just 2 years ago, my vitamin D levels were relatively low. So since then, I've been on vitamin D. So let that be a wake-up call for those of you. If you haven't had your labs done, I suggest you go get them done and check your vitamin D levels just to be sure. And I'm relatively healthy, no major medical problems, and my vitamin D levels were low. I mean, I'm a doctor, I work indoors. I do my gym indoors. I don't go for outdoor runs. So, and I live in LA, so that's saying something. So that's why it's important for those of you who don't know your vitamin D levels, you should. Let's see, the dose they recommended from the National Institute of Health for this study was 400 IUs of vitamin D. I take 1,000 per day. So just some FYIs. Safety, there's no increased risk of death in those patients, and we know that right now acute respiratory tract infections are 10% of United States ER visits. So it's not that uncommon to see patients with or without COVID-19 with respiratory tract infections. And the main problem of these patients in critical condition with COVID-19, kind of to piece this all together, is the ARDS, acute respiratory distress syndrome. So that basically is an immune system overreaction to a bacterial, or in this case COVID-19 viral infection. So if you can imagine your lungs, they have these little tunnels, and those tunnels have these little sacs, and those are called your alveoli. And whenever your body senses a virus, it basically creates an immune response to go attack it. And in some patients, this attack overwhelms your body's immune response. So that alveoli, that sac, builds fluid, and that fluid is full of inflammatory cells, and that fluid prevents the exchange of oxygen, which goes into your bloodstream that makes sure you stay alive, and CO2, which is leaving the red blood cell that you breathe out. So that's a cycle. And this immune response doesn't allow that to happen. Well, vitamin D helps get rid of that inflammatory response. So that fluid that we're just talking about, it helps get rid of that problem. Vitamin D also helps repair or upregulate the synthesis of your body's immune cells. So the cells that actually go and fight infection, vitamin D actually has a receptor on those cells. So that should give you a clue as to how important vitamin D is to our immune system. And lastly, it helps regenerate the lining of the epithelial barrier. So the epithelium is the outer layer of our lung cells, and so vitamin D helps regenerate that. And so we constantly have this barrier that protects against the virus getting into your lung cells. So with that, I hope that gave you some tips. Please share this with your loved ones and your friends to make sure they understand the importance of taking vitamin D. Hopefully to this day I don't have any more issues with my vitamin D levels, but if I could help those of you out there watching increase your vitamin D levels and just in general become more knowledgeable about your own body's immune response, then I think I've done my job. Thanks for watching.